I have a question, and I know you're going to know the obvious answer to it that I'm just missing, and I can't think of it. But this was the real point I was going to make on the TF2 question. So I asked yesterday, TF2, if it came out today, would it be popular? Because if you think about it, a lot of the games that when they came out, they kind of owned that space. TF2 owned that space, right? It wasn't until Overwatch came out that it had like really legit competition. Is Counter-Strike the best 5v5 shooter? I would say probably not, but it doesn't matter because it owns the top spot, and then everybody has to compete against that mind share and how the competition and how the thinking about it and the strategies can be so advanced because everybody shares that knowledge about it, right? It takes that top spot and it's really hard to unset. You think of like League of Legends, Dota 2, really because Dota existence was able to pull from, but like you have these top spot games that own the top spot. And I was recently talking about Command and Conquer actually released their source code and did a whole bunch of really great stuff. Yeah, EA did that. I know. But because they don't see that there's a future that they're going to come back with a Command and Conquer that captures that space. Like that kind of game isn't popular anymore. And I would argue Battlefield, when Battlefield 1943 came out, if you were on the internet, you stopped everything and you played Battlefield 1943 and you played it endlessly. And it's not quite the game we had now. It was just more chaotic. Like planes sat on the tarmac and you had to wait and you had to fight to see who could be the first to jump on the plane. But what you could also do is you could put explosives on the plane. So if you didn't get it, you could explode it 2 seconds later. Who cares if you're on the same team? It was just mayhem and chaos. One of the favorite things I got to write for magazines for EGM, way back, was I wrote like a 5-page guide to how to play Battlefield. I think like the original one, $1,500 a page. It was a good writing gig back in the day. And my guides were not helpful. They were how to be chaotic and bad and crazy at the game, but have fun. Hey, someone ruined the guides by actually making them practical and just copying like whatever. Who cares? They're just copying the manual. Mine were at least funny. Mine and Eric's. But I did, yeah. But the Battlefields were just fun to me. I love them. They're my series, right? But you have these like Call of Duty. You have these games that have been around, League of Legends, Dota, right? Like, how do you unseat it is one question. But the other question is, what's one that's owned a space like that, lost it, and come back? Because they've tried, like Medal of Honor didn't do that. Medal of Honor was never the big. But like, right, they've tried to do this with a lot of different games and not been able to recapture. And so I'm kind of curious, is there one? Am I missing one? Am I just not thinking of one? And sadly, Battlefield seems to be going away from this. I've talked about how I love when you get a team together that actually understands the different disciplines and how you can work together and how it's just like this magical thing. But like Battlefield's been different things at different times. There's a point where Desert Combat mod came out, and that was just incredible. Really bad AI, but really fun. My nephews and I used to go together on the same team and then spawn like 1,000 bots on the other side and just slaughter them. But I mean, they're like 8, so they have an excuse. I don't. Still thought it was hilariously fun. But right, like there's just like a whole bunch of versions of the game, and like Battlefield 3 was a lot of people, and I think a lot of people like Battlefield 3, and it was my least favorite. I have a lot of problems with it. Battlefield 4 had the giant destruction, right? And remember, like, the buildings coming down, and I really liked the progression of weapons and unlocks, and you got it from just playing. It wasn't like buying season passes and stuff. I think you could. Battlefield 1 was really good with World War 1. Remember flying a giant blimp around? Like, that had a bunch of crazy cool stuff in it. Mortars, that was good. Battlefield 5 I really like, has a lot of things, but at times a lot of people don't care and like they don't use the tools available to them, so they don't play the game to the fullest, and that drives me a little crazy, right? And you always have people who aren't doing the objectives, but whatever. But yeah, so is there a game that was on that top rung that owned that space that if they just kept doing what they were doing? Notice I don't talk about the one for Battlefield, right? Because that one doesn't count. That's not a Battlefield. And I worry the new one's going to be the same thing, where they don't understand that it's about these pitched battles and battle lines in fronts and mixed crews. And yeah, I really think they don't understand that. The design of that one just sunk the series. Like it just did. It just did. It just cratered that series. Where retroactively games got bad. But has there been one that had that top spot, like the Counter-Strike like glow about it, lost it, and then come back? I feel like I'm missing a really obvious one that someone's going to say in the first comment, and I'm going to debate deleting this entire video. Except I really do like the Battlefield series, and it's kind of fun walking that memory lane on it. So let me know. If not, can Battlefield come back? What would make it come back? What would make it stand out? Like, Call of Duty's is so noisy. So noisy. But there's a space, like, because I don't know the difference between Scum, DayZ, and Rust. I do, but I don't. Like, they own the same space in my brain. And, like, I don't know where Battlefield owns anymore. Because I like games where you can jump, where you can play for a while and it's not a tight squad, and you can fall, jump in, jump out. Like,